On a cold, relentless autumn night in New York City, rain cascaded down in torrents that transformed familiar streets into glistening corridors of light and shadow. The city's towering skyscrapers and neon-lit billboards, once symbols of ceaseless ambition, now stood mute witnesses to a brewing storm, both meteorological and personal. As puddles rippled under the glare of streetlights and reflections danced on rain-soaked sidewalks, a sleek black limousine pulled up to a modest building tucked away in a historic Brooklyn neighborhood. From within its tinted windows emerged Barron Trump, a young man whose every step carried both the burden and the brilliance of a storied legacy. Though barely in his 20s, Barron exuded a maturity that belied his age. Raised in the limelight and schooled in the unspoken art of power plays and honor, he possessed an intensity in his eyes, a mixture of cold resolve and smoldering indignation. Tonight, that intensity was directed at a man known in the media circles for his daring exposés and relentless pursuit of the truth, Alex Barron, a tenacious investigative journalist whose pen had time and again threatened to tarnish the reputation of the Trump dynasty by casting aspersions on the integrity of Donald Trump, Barron's father. Barron's arrival had not been by chance. Weeks of furtive phone calls, midnight meetings in dimly lit diners, and hushed conversations on cracked sidewalks had led him to this pivotal moment. His mind replayed the memory of a recent high-profile press conference where Alex, with a sardonic twist of his lips and a glint of self-assured malice in his eyes, had declared, "How can we trust a legacy if the past is shrouded in secrets and deceit?" Those words, aimed directly at Barron's family, had ignited an inner fury that now compelled him to act. As Barron made his way down a slick, deserted avenue toward a modest café that served as an informal meeting point for local media influencers, his steps were measured and determined. The rain pounded the pavement with an insistent rhythm, each droplet echoing the resolute beat of his heart. Under the muted glow of a flickering street lamp, he caught sight of Alex Barron waiting, leaning casually against a graffiti-splashed brick wall outside a bustling bistro in downtown Manhattan. Alex's attire, a slightly rumpled blazer and jeans, contrasted sharply with the refined confidence of Barron's tailored overcoat and immaculate stance. For a long moment, the two men regarded each other in silence. Alex's eyes, sharp and calculating, held an arrogance born of countless victories in the realm of media warfare, while Barron's gaze was steady and unyielding, hinting at a storm that would not be quelled by mere words. Finally, breaking the silence, Alex spoke in a tone that dripped with derision. "Barron, isn't it? How do you expect to defend your father's legacy when you yourself seem so intent on burying the truth under layers of silence?" His voice, laced with sarcasm, resonated in the cool night air, drawing the attention of a few late-night passers-by. Barron's face remained impassive for several heartbeats as he absorbed the challenge. Then, in a measured yet icy tone, he responded, "Truth is a matter of perspective, Alex. Those who live in fantasies cannot comprehend the real cost of preserving honor." The words hung between them like a gauntlet thrown on the rain-soaked pavement. Around them, the city seemed to hold its breath. Every glistening droplet, every distant honk of a taxi, every murmur of wind through alleyways became part of an unfolding drama. In that charged atmosphere, every subtle gesture was magnified, every shift in stance hinted at deeper intentions. Barron's knuckles whitened around the leather strap of his briefcase, as if ready to summon not just his resolve but also the meticulously prepared evidence and allies he had amassed over the preceding weeks. Alex's smirk deepened as he leaned forward, his tone almost mocking. "You speak of honor as if it were something you can manufacture on command. Perhaps you haven't yet realized that exposing the truth demands more than blind loyalty. It requires courage to confront your own demons." Barron's eyes narrowed imperceptibly. The exchange was no longer a mere verbal sparring match. It had become a collision of ideologies, one rooted in a family legacy of public triumphs and one fueled by the relentless ambition of a man who thrived on unveiling secrets. The rain intensified, drumming a furious cadence on the pavement and setting the stage for what would soon be a confrontation that transcended personal rivalry. As the minutes stretched into an eternity, the world around them seemed to blur. Neon signs, honking horns, and the hum of distant traffic all faded into the background, leaving only the two men and the raw intensity of their beliefs. Barron's mind raced through images of his father's storied career, the battles fought in boardrooms and on the campaign trail, and the silent lessons learned from observing the maneuvers of powerful adversaries. This was more than just a personal vendetta. It was a matter of legacy, of defending a name that had been built on triumph against all odds. In that fraught moment beneath the rain, as the world around them moved in a chaotic rhythm of urban life, the spark of confrontation was lit. It was a spark that promised to ignite a blaze of events destined to reshape not only the lives of these two men, but also the very fabric of the political and media landscape in America. For Barron Trump, the night was not just about settling a score, it was about reclaiming a family honor that had been challenged by every insinuation and every printed line of deceit. The confrontation, raw and unscripted, was a prelude to the violent and transformative events that lay ahead. The rain, a silent participant, washed over them, blurring the edges of reality and setting the tone for a night that would be remembered as the inception of an era defined by unwavering loyalty, calculated retribution, and the harsh truth that in America, legacy was defended at any cost. Dawn crept over the horizon with a grim inevitability, casting a pallid light over a New York City that still shuddered from the previous night's tension. In a modest apartment in a historic part of Manhattan, walls lined with aged newspapers, relics of bygone eras, and personal mementos of journalistic triumphs, Alex Barron sat hunched over his cluttered desk. The room, cluttered with case files, hastily scribbled notes, and faded photographs, was his sanctum, a haven where the truth was relentlessly pursued, no matter the personal cost. Alex's latest series of exposés had shaken the corridors of power. His articles, brimming with revelations about clandestine deals, under-the-table negotiations, and secretive pacts among America's political and business elites, had become the talk of the town. Yet beneath the veneer of fearless determination lay a simmering bitterness, a feeling that every word he penned was a personal strike against an establishment that cared little for transparency. In recent weeks, Alex had received an anonymous package, a thick envelope stuffed with documents, voice recordings, and photographs, that hinted at a scandal of seismic proportions. The material suggested that the venerable Trump family, emblematic of American power and resilience, might be entangled in dark dealings that defied the very ideals they purported to represent. In the dim early morning light filtering through Venetian blinds, Alex's mind churned with conflicting thoughts. He believed in the power of the truth, yet he could not shake the nagging doubt that his relentless pursuit of exposure might be driven, at least in part, by personal vendetta rather than a pure desire for justice. Every lead he chased, every anonymous tip he followed, seemed to deepen the shadows of betrayal, not only among the powerful but within himself as well. The lines between righteous investigation and an insatiable hunger for retribution were becoming increasingly blurred. As the city began to stir, Alex meticulously reviewed the new evidence. Photographs captured clandestine meetings in opulent hotel lobbies, secretive conversations recorded in hushed tones behind locked doors, and financial documents that painted a damning picture of collusion between influential businessmen and high-ranking officials. Each new discovery was like a piece of a vast, complex puzzle, a puzzle that promised to reveal an underbelly of American power hitherto hidden from the public eye. And yet, the more he uncovered, the more Alex felt the weight of his own internal contradictions. Was he, in his quest to expose the wrongs of the establishment, inadvertently becoming an instrument in their endless game of power? Across town, in a sleek modern office overlooking Central Park, Barron Trump was likewise immersed in his own battle. The events of the previous night had sparked an unyielding determination within him, a determination to not only defend his family's honor but to obliterate any threat that dared undermine it. In his private study, adorned with portraits of his father's achievements and mementos from years of high-stakes deals, Barron pored over data, confidential memos, and intercepted communications. His aides, loyal and discreet, had brought him every scrap of intelligence that might illuminate Alex Barron's next move. Barron's inner sanctum was a stark contrast to the chaos of Alex's cluttered workspace. Every item was meticulously arranged, every document cross-referenced and highlighted. Here, in the quiet hum of a well-secured office, Barron was not merely reacting to threats, he was orchestrating a counteroffensive. Each piece of information was a weapon to be deployed in the battle for his father's legacy. The narrative that Alex had begun to construct, the one that painted the Trump name in shades of scandal and betrayal, was unacceptable. In Barron's eyes, it was a calculated assault on the very foundation of what America represented: strength, resilience, and unwavering patriotism. Yet, amid the methodical accumulation of evidence and the strategic planning of his next steps, a sense of foreboding lurked in the recesses of Barron's mind. The more he uncovered about the sources behind Alex's information, the more he suspected that the journalist might be manipulated by even darker forces that thrived on chaos and scandal. There were whispers in elite circles of a shadowy cabal, an unnamed consortium that sought to use the power of the press as a tool for their own nefarious purposes. For Barron, every anonymous tip and every hushed conversation was a thread leading back to this elusive network of betrayal. As the day unfolded, both men found themselves ensnared in an intricate web of conflicting loyalties and hidden agendas. Alex, whose once unshakable belief in the sanctity of the truth was now tainted by personal ambition and unresolved inner turmoil, began to question whether his crusade was a noble pursuit or a descent into self-destruction. Each keystroke on his battered laptop was a reminder that in exposing the corrupt, he might also be exposing the darker corners of his own soul. In a downtown diner that served as a neutral ground for late-night intellectuals and insomniacs alike, Alex met with an informant, a jittery former corporate executive who whispered of secret meetings in luxurious Manhattan hotel suites, of backroom deals sealed with more than just handshakes. Over cups of strong coffee and greasy diner fare, the informant recounted details that were as tantalizing as they were incriminating. Every word painted a picture of a network of power brokers willing to sacrifice ethics for profit, of alliances formed in the shadows that could topple empires with a single misstep. Alex scribbled notes feverishly, his mind racing to piece together the narrative that would expose this hidden conspiracy. But even as the informant's words fueled his determination, an unsettling thought gnawed at him. Could it be that in his zeal to reveal the truth, he was inadvertently becoming a pawn in a much larger, more insidious game? Meanwhile, Barron spent his afternoon in quiet contemplation in a private conference room within a secure Trump-owned building in Midtown. Around him, a select group of trusted advisors, veterans of corporate warfare and seasoned operatives from covert government agencies, deliberated over strategies to neutralize the threat posed by Alex's growing influence. The discussion was hushed but intense, every detail scrutinized and every potential risk weighed. They analyzed every public statement, every published article by Alex, determined to identify weaknesses that could be exploited. Barron's steely resolve was palpable. His voice, measured and commanding, underscored the gravity of their task. Our family's honor is not for sale. We must dismantle this narrative before it gains the momentum to undo decades of achievement. In that charged atmosphere, as the city outside buzzed with the promise of a new day, the seeds of betrayal and counteraction had been firmly planted. Two men, separated by ideology yet inexorably drawn together by fate, were now locked in a battle that extended far beyond personal grievances. It was a conflict that would not only redefine their lives, but also send shockwaves through the very institutions of power in America. With every revelation and every whispered secret, the shadows of betrayal deepened, casting long, dark silhouettes over a landscape that prided itself on transparency and justice. By evening, as the urban skyline blazed with the lights of ambition and redemption, both Alex and Barron found themselves on the precipice of irrevocable change. The tension, a tangible thread woven through the fabric of their respective worlds, promised that the next move would set in motion events from which neither could turn back. In the interplay of light and shadow, truth and deception, the stage was being set for a confrontation that would shake the foundations of an empire built on legacy and relentless ambition. Under the stark glow of a full moon, the urban sprawl of New York City transformed into a labyrinth of secrets and silent corridors. In a quiet industrial district on the outskirts of the city, Barron Trump meticulously advanced his covert preparations. Every step he took on the cracked pavement of an abandoned warehouse district was measured, every glance over his shoulder a testament to the intensity of the stakes at hand. For weeks, behind closed doors and within secure, undisclosed locations, Barron had been piecing together a counteroffensive designed to dismantle the growing threat posed by Alex Varron's exposés, a threat he believed went far beyond mere journalistic ambition. In a discreet refurbished loft in Brooklyn, a space that combined the raw aesthetics of old New York with the precision of modern technology, Barron assembled a small but highly skilled team. His operatives, drawn from retired intelligence officers, seasoned corporate strategists, and discreet legal advisors, gathered around a scarred wooden table. Here, amidst maps, confidential files, and multiple computer screens streaming live data, plans were being forged with the precision of a military operation. The loft's industrial charm, with exposed brick walls and steel beams, lent the entire operation an unmistakable aura of authenticity and urgency. Barron's mind was abuzz with the weight of responsibility. Every lesson gleaned from his father's storied career, taught through years of observing boardroom battles, televised debates, and quiet negotiations behind closed doors, was now put to use. He recalled the times when Donald Trump had maneuvered through crises with a blend of bravado and calculated strategy, and he knew that the coming confrontation with Alex Varron was not merely a clash of personalities, but a high-stakes gambit in a game where the rules were continuously rewritten. The documents he had painstakingly gathered, the intercepted communications, and the corroborative testimonies from insiders were to serve as both shield and sword in this impending battle. Late one night, while the city outside slumbered beneath a canopy of stars, Barron retreated into a small, private library within the loft. Surrounded by leather-bound volumes and archival records of historical significance, he pored over past events, reading about similar conflicts in American history, where truth and loyalty clashed in arenas as diverse as political conventions and underground backroom deals. Every page he turned was a reminder that the tactics of the past could illuminate the path forward. Here, amid the rustle of ancient paper and the soft hum of a vintage record player, he began to map out a strategy that would expose the vulnerabilities in Alex Varron's plans while safeguarding the sanctity of his family's legacy. Meanwhile, in a sleek glass-encased office in Midtown Manhattan, Alex Barron was oblivious to the quiet storm gathering on the other side of the city. Immersed in his own relentless pursuit of the next big scoop, Alex was orchestrating a series of interviews and investigations intended to peel back the layers of secrecy surrounding influential circles in Washington, D.C., and New York's corporate elite. Every day, as he sifted through leaks and anonymous documents in his cluttered workspace, a persistent thought gnawed at him, that his exposés were part of a larger, far more dangerous game. Was it possible that the very sources he trusted were entangled in a web of deceit, feeding him narratives designed to serve an agenda not entirely his own? For Alex, the thrill of exposing the underbelly of power was tempered by the creeping realization that his work might inadvertently empower those who thrived on manipulation. Each article he drafted was imbued with an urgency, a desperate need to reveal the hidden machinations of a system that seemed to operate on shadows and whispers. His fingers danced across the keyboard as he recounted meetings in opulent hotel lobbies, secret rendezvous in upscale diners, and whispered conversations in the corridors of power. And yet, with every detail recorded, a part of him wondered if the truth he was chasing was merely a well-orchestrated illusion, crafted by forces that preferred their dealings to remain clandestine. Back in the Brooklyn loft, as dawn approached with the promise of a new day, Barron convened a confidential meeting with his inner circle. The atmosphere was thick with determination and a quiet intensity that bordered on the ominous. Each team member was briefed on their role. One would secure the digital evidence, another would coordinate with legal experts to preempt any retaliatory measures, and yet another was tasked with ensuring that any leak of sensitive information was neutralized before it could reach the public domain. Every detail was scrutinized, every contingency planned. Barron's voice, low and resolute, filled the room. We are not merely defending our family's honor, we are taking control of the narrative. If Alex Varron dares to expose us with half-truths and manipulated facts, we will respond with undeniable evidence that speaks for itself. Our next move must be flawless. The meeting lasted well into the early hours, with plans evolving as new intelligence was incorporated. Outside, the city's relentless rhythm continued unabated, oblivious to the clandestine war being waged in its shadowy corners. Barron's team worked with a precision that evoked both military strategy and high-stakes corporate maneuvering. Every intercepted call, every discreet tip from a trusted source, was catalogued and analyzed. The conspiratorial atmosphere was palpable. A network of dark alliances and secret deals was slowly being unraveled before their eyes. Yet, even as Barron's preparations grew ever more meticulous, a gnawing unease persisted. The deeper he delved into the origins of Alex's information, the more he began to suspect that his rival might not be acting alone. Rumors of a covert consortium, a cadre of power brokers and shadow operatives whose influence extended into the very heart of American institutions, had begun to circulate in hushed tones among his advisors. These whispers suggested that Alex's revelations could be part of a larger scheme, a strategic move orchestrated by those who sought to destabilize the established order for their own gain. As midday approached, Barron stepped out onto a fire escape overlooking the bustling streets of Brooklyn. The cacophony of city life, a mixture of honking taxis, chattering pedestrians, and the distant wail of sirens, served as a reminder that the stakes of their game extended far beyond personal vendettas. It was a matter of legacy, honor, and the very essence of American resilience. With a deep, steadying breath, he reaffirmed his resolve. Every ounce of effort, every painstaking detail would culminate in a moment when the truth would be revealed on his terms, not as a casualty of reckless journalism. In the coming days, as both Alex and Barron continued to weave their respective narratives, the city itself seemed to brace for the inevitable collision of ideologies. The labyrinthine network of alleys, subway stations, and towering offices of New York bore silent witness to a battle where words and deeds would merge into a single indomitable force. In that charged environment, where every shadow held a secret and every whispered conversation hinted at treachery, the seeds of conspiracy and meticulous preparation were sown. And as the threads of fate intertwined, one truth remained inescapable: the next move in this high-stakes chess game would alter the course of American power forever. Night had fallen again over New York City, and the air was thick with anticipation, as if the metropolis itself were holding its breath. In an abandoned industrial complex on the city's outskirts, a relic of a bygone era now repurposed as the stage for clandestine encounters, the long-anticipated confrontation was about to reach its boiling point. Here, amid rusted metal girders, shattered windows, and the eerie glow of emergency exit signs, two forces on a collision course prepared to meet head-on. Barron Trump arrived first, his presence as silent and resolute as a specter emerging from the depths of his long-planned strategy. Dressed in a dark, impeccably tailored jacket and accompanied by an aura of steely determination, he navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the deserted facility. Every step echoed on the cold concrete, reverberating through the vast emptiness like the drumbeat of an impending reckoning. For him, this was no ordinary night. It was the culmination of weeks of covert operations, secret meetings in upscale midtown safehouses, and the painstaking gathering of damning evidence. His mind was laser-focused on one goal: to neutralize the threat posed by Alex Barron, the journalist whose relentless quest for scandal had now become a direct assault on his family's honor. Moments later, Alex Barron emerged from the shadows near a large broken window, his silhouette framed by the erratic flicker of a lone fluorescent bulb. His disheveled suit, a stark contrast to Barron's calculated precision, suggested a man who had spent too many nights in pursuit of a story at any cost. In his eyes burned a mixture of defiance and desperation, a man convinced that exposing the truth, no matter the collateral damage, was his righteous calling. The industrial complex, with its cavernous halls and labyrinthine passageways, served as the perfect arena for their impending duel, a battleground where the ideals of honor and the drive for revelation would clash in a moment of explosive consequence. For a few agonizing seconds, time seemed to suspend itself. The two adversaries sized each other up in the dim light, the distance between them charged with an intensity that transcended mere physical proximity. The silence was punctuated only by the distant hum of a broken ventilation system and the soft patter of rain against the corrugated metal roof. Finally, breaking the stillness, Barron's voice, measured, cold, and resolute, cut through the silence. "Alex, you always claimed that the truth must be laid bare at any cost. But tonight, you must learn that every action has its price. My father's legacy is not a toy for you to desecrate with your reckless words." Alex's response was immediate and laced with bitter irony. "You think you can silence me with your prepared rhetoric? The truth will out, Barron. No matter how many obstacles you erect, I will shine a light into the darkest corners of your world." In that charged moment, the two men lunged forward almost simultaneously. What followed was a blur of motion, swift, calculated strikes intermingled with desperate parries. Barron's movements were a study in precision and discipline, each blow executed with the cold efficiency of someone who had rehearsed every possibility. Alex, on the other hand, fought with an unbridled intensity born of years spent battling the entrenched powers of a corrupt system. Their struggle was not just physical but ideological, a desperate contest to determine whose version of the truth would dominate the narrative. The cavernous space of the abandoned complex reverberated with the sounds of their confrontation. The clatter of fists against flesh, the heavy thud of bodies colliding, and the ragged breathing of two men caught in a fight that transcended personal enmity all blended into a chaotic symphony. In one heart-stopping moment, as Barron delivered a decisive blow that sent Alex staggering against a dilapidated concrete wall, it became unmistakably clear that the balance of power was shifting irrevocably. Alex's defiant glare faltered, replaced by a dawning realization that his crusade for exposure had led him into a trap from which there might be no escape. "Your crusade ends here," Barron growled, his voice echoing off the cold, rusted surfaces. In that instant, the physical confrontation morphed into a symbolic battle, a reckoning in which the integrity of a family legacy was pitted against the relentless, and at times self-destructive hunger for truth. Each punch, each evasive maneuver, was laden with years of accumulated tension, every moment charged with the knowledge that the outcome of this night would resonate far beyond the confines of this derelict warehouse. As the struggle reached its apex in a narrow corridor lit only by the harsh glare of an emergency light, the two adversaries found themselves face to face, their expressions raw and unguarded. In the confined space, the entire gamut of their emotions, pride, betrayal, rage, and a profound, almost existential sorrow, was laid bare. Alex, breathing heavily, attempted one final retort: "Even if you silence me tonight, the truth will eventually break free. History has a way of correcting itself." But Barron's reply was final, devoid of any hesitation: "Not tonight, Alex. Tonight, the legacy stands unchallenged." With that, the exchange culminated in a decisive maneuver. In one swift, almost balletic motion, Barron subdued his opponent, the confrontation reaching a crescendo that signified not just the physical defeat of a rival, but the symbolic reclamation of a tarnished narrative. In the aftermath of the clash, as echoes of their struggle faded into the shadows of the abandoned complex, Barron stood alone amid the wreckage of their encounter. His chest heaved with exertion and determination, and in his eyes burned the unmistakable fire of conviction. The confrontation had been brutal and uncompromising, a moment where the clash of ideals and the collision of destinies forged a new reality. Outside, the city's lights blinked in indifferent rhythm, unaware that within these forsaken walls, the future of a legacy had been irrevocably reshaped. And as the rain began to ease its relentless assault on the battered structure, the silence that followed spoke volumes. The legacy had been defended, and the scales of power had decisively tipped in favor of those who would protect it at any cost. In the gentle glow of early morning, as the first tentative rays of sunlight crept over the New York skyline, the city awoke to a changed reality. The violent echoes of the previous night's confrontation had begun to recede, replaced by a reflective hush that blanketed every street and alley. In the aftermath of that fateful clash, the American landscape, both public and private, was beginning to feel the weight of profound transformation. The battle between Barron Trump and Alex Barron was not merely a personal duel, it was a turning point that rippled outwards, affecting politics, the media, and the very nature of legacy in a nation built on ideals of strength, honor, and relentless reinvention. In upscale boardrooms in Manhattan and cozy diners in Brooklyn alike, conversations turned from mundane complaints to existential debates about truth, power, and the cost of integrity. For many, Barron Trump's decisive action, so swift and uncompromising, was heralded as a necessary stand against the corrosive influence of scandal-driven journalism. His victory, while violent and controversial, was seen by his supporters as the ultimate act of protection for a family legacy that had weathered decades of public scrutiny. In hushed conversations at charity galas, in smoky backrooms of private clubs, and over celebratory dinners in exclusive restaurants, the narrative of that night was recounted with a mixture of awe and solemn pride. Within the walls of the Trump headquarters, an atmosphere of controlled elation and cautious resolve prevailed. Senior advisors and trusted family members convened in a stately conference room, its windows offering a commanding view of Central Park's awakening splendor. The mood was one of quiet determination. They understood that the battle had been won, yet the war for public opinion and the shaping of a new political order was only just beginning. A series of confidential memos, press releases, and strategic statements was drafted to ensure that the story of the night would be told on their terms, a narrative of honor reclaimed and deception vanquished. Across the city, however, the fallout was equally complex. Journalists, once emboldened by Alex Barron's uncompromising pursuit of scandal, now found themselves grappling with the implications of a media landscape forever altered. Editorial offices in major publications buzzed with heated discussions about the responsibilities of the press. There were those who argued that in exposing corruption, they had performed a vital service to the public. Others contended that the pursuit of sensationalism had blinded them to the nuanced realities of power. The stark imagery of a man brought low by his own hubris served as a cautionary tale, a reminder that in America, the truth was a double-edged sword that could both liberate and destroy. In academic circles and think tanks scattered across the nation, scholars dissected the events with a mix of historical perspective and contemporary urgency. Conferences were convened, research papers were published, and spirited debates erupted about the evolving nature of accountability in the digital age. The confrontation between Barron and Alex became a case study in the exercise of power, a moment when the collision of personal ambition and public duty forced everyone to confront uncomfortable questions about ethics, loyalty, and the price of truth. Amidst the societal introspection, the lives of ordinary citizens began to take on new meaning. Families, having witnessed a public spectacle that resonated with the timeless struggle between honor and betrayal, started to re-examine their own values. Neighborhood associations organized community meetings where people discussed not only the state of local governance, but also the deeper, more personal implications of standing up for what one believed in. For many, the image of Barron Trump, unyielding in his determination to protect his family's legacy, became an emblem of resilience and the belief that even in a world rife with deception, true integrity could prevail. Internationally, analysts and political commentators watched the unfolding drama with keen interest. In bustling newsrooms from Washington to London, the story was dissected, debated, and transmitted as a signal that America was on the brink of a new era. There was a growing consensus that the events of that night were not isolated incidents, but part of a larger shift towards a more transparent and ruthlessly honest public discourse. Countries grappling with their own issues of corruption and accountability saw in this narrative a reflection of their struggles and a potential roadmap for reform. As the day unfolded, the early morning calm gave way to a steady optimism. The once tense air of conflict slowly transformed into an atmosphere of renewal, a dawn that promised not an end, but the beginning of a redefined order. In art galleries, coffee shops, and even on the streets, new creative expressions emerged. Murals depicting symbolic images of light overcoming darkness, songs that spoke of redemption and rebirth, and literary works that wove together the personal and the political into a tapestry of hope. In the quiet solitude of a penthouse overlooking a rejuvenated cityscape, Barron took a moment for himself. Surrounded by photographs of his father's triumphs and mementos of battles fought and won, he reflected on the cost of the night's events. His expression was a blend of satisfaction and sorrow, the knowledge that in defending his family's honor, he had irrevocably altered the lives of many, including his adversary, Barron. Yet, in that same moment, he recognized that every struggle, every sacrifice, was the price of a legacy that had defined generations. For him, the challenge was not over. It was merely evolving into a new chapter in the eternal contest between power and principle. By late afternoon, as the city pulsed with renewed energy, public opinion began to crystallize. A quiet revolution was underway, one that demanded greater accountability from both the media and those who wielded power. Social media platforms exploded with debates, and community leaders called for greater transparency in government and corporate practices. The narrative of betrayal and retribution had given way to one of hope and reinvention. The old paradigms were crumbling, making space for an era where honor, truth, and justice would serve as the bedrock of a revitalized American society. In the final hours of that transformative day, as dusk began to descend and the city once again bathed in the warm glow of streetlights, a sense of collective purpose emerged. The legacy that had been fiercely defended was now being reimagined, not as an impenetrable fortress of tradition, but as a living testament to the power of resilience and the enduring belief that in America, even the darkest moments can herald the dawn of a new era. And so, as the final light of day faded, a profound silence settled over the city, a silence pregnant with possibility and the promise that the future, however uncertain, belonged to those willing to stand for truth, honor, and the eternal quest for justice.